Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Donut Shop Podcasts, where we share real stories from real people who've been through it, turned around, and are now even helping others do the same. Today's guest is Matthew Handy, a man whose story is a powerful example of redemption and resilience. He's lived homeless, he's served prison time for bank robbery, and faced the kind of darkness that could easily have ended his story. But it didn't. Matthews rebuilt his life from the ground up and now owns and operates Harmony Grove Behavioral Health, a recovery and treatment facility dedicated to helping others find their way back from addiction and despair. In this episode, we're going to go over a lot of those points and talk about how someone can go from rock bottom to building up something that saves people's lives, and just what accountability looks like. So here we go. And what's up, Matt? Thanks for coming in and
Man,
come on the podcast.
thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, so it's cool. So we sort of, you didn't know. I was asking you before if we met through a mutual friend, Taylor Kavanaugh, but I guess we didn't, and I didn't actually follow up and find exactly about how you found the show. But I'm happy you're here, and as you were telling me before, Taylor's been a great mentor or great influence on your life too.
Massively for sure. Yeah, when I met him, I was going through some things, right? And I reached out to him, and he literally gave me a couple steps to do, and it completely changed the trajectory of where I was going at that time.
That's awesome. It's really cool when someone can have that kind of effect on you, whether intentional or unintentional.
Yeah.
And I think it's always important to give those people credit and talk to them about that and let them know, when they've done those sort of things for you. Because they can roll that into something else. If it's somebody that's never thought about that kind of thing, like I had that sort of effect on somebody, they might realize that they've got something powerful that they could talk to people about, which sounds like what you're doing nowadays, especially with your history. So let's kind of get into history, like just where you come from. I like to try to establish people, or sort of, and obviously you've established some of your story with me, but let's tell everybody what's up and kind of where you've come from.
Sure. So I was born in Provo.
Okay.
I got a big Mormon family. So I was born in Provo. My parents were at BYU. I came to San Diego, or I went to San Diego 2 weeks later, something like that. And that's really where I lived until I was 31. Kind of traveled all over the place or whatever. But so I'm the oldest of 10 kids.
Wow.
And
oh, well, yeah, Mormon family, I guess. So, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that kind of like plays a big part in my story because I got into drugs really young. Not just smoking weed and drinking on the weekends with, the high school parties or whatever. It was like smoking crack, doing coke, slamming heroin. I had heroin dealers at my high school. So,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
But that was all in San Diego.
yeah, all in San Diego.
Mhm.
And my parents were concerned about their job as a parent, right? And so I'm 16. There are little kids in the house, like legitimately
Yeah.
little kids. So they're like, dude, you can't do this here. Like, you got to go. So I'm pretty sure their intention was like, he's going to go out there and like not be able to make it. So he'll come back and just kind of get right or whatever.
Yeah. Get punched in the face and turn around and come back, failed.
Yeah. Yeah. That didn't happen. I did get punched in the face. I did fail, but I just didn't go back.
Yeah.
And, and so I was made to survive, right? It wasn't like I was out there like living life and like having fun and like, no, it was, I was making terrible mistakes at a really young age. I had a family member who is also another black sheep or whatever, and got me into his criminality and like committing crimes to support ourselves and doing drugs and just the whole nine, right? Like I was 17 years old with my own 2-bedroom house, and in my eyes, I'm like, I could do whatever I want, like I'm supporting myself, I'm paying my bills most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, like I got this living girlfriend, and my brother got kicked out too, and he's living with me. And I'm like, dude, I could do
Yeah.
whatever I want, you know? It was in very short order that I ended up in prison, right? So 19 years old was my first prison term.
Wow.
And I was the youngest person on that yard. Um, and so that started a vicious cycle because of course I had a blast the first time I was in prison. Getting to know
So is it
and
so is it I mean, was it like what kind of a term was it or what kind of crime?
so it was for an assault with a deadly weapon.
Okay.
It was like a drug fueled situation. Ended up
Yeah.
taking this plea deal, and I was supposed to do a turnaround. Basically, I was supposed to be in prison for less than 3 months. I turned that into 3 years straight.
Wow.
Yeah,
Just because
and
of mistakes inside, right? Like,
I mean, I would like to say they were mistakes, but they were really very much so on purpose.
okay.
You know, I was having fun and I was young and I had expectations, but if I could fulfill those expectations, then I had benefits, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, you know, so I'm strung out on heroin in prison. I'm
Wow.
doing whatever they tell me to do because I get more heroin. It was just a mess, right? I was completely directionless in a place with massive structure. So I fell in line pretty quick to the structure's demands on me. And
And so you're saying, but like the inmates structure, not
yeah,
necessarily not necessarily the institution structure,
correct.
what the inmates kind of, structured out for you.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
for sure. There was you know, there's a saying that there is no honor amongst thieves. But I have found that that's particularly not true in prisons.
Okay.
Um Obviously, the prison system has changed drastically over the last 10 years. It's just not the same situation that it was in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh, there are things that have happened specifically in the California prison system that has really dictated that the the convict's grip on the prison system has been completely stripped from them. And
Oh,
so
okay.
now, yeah, and so now they're not calling the shots. They're not running prisons. You know, they have these indeterminate shoe programs, and they've got all of these deterrents that the system has put in place to really crack down on that grip. Because prison is a money making system, right? Like on both sides of that table, there's people in there making money, and there's people in there generating money legally, right? Like,
Yeah.
and ultimately, we're the biggest prison system in the world. There is more people per capita locked up in the United States than are anywhere else. And just by volume, the amount of people in prison, it's staggering. And so we are this side of the table, like the convict side of the table, has slowly lost its grip on that system. And when I came into prison, it was kind of the last throes of this side of the table having control.
Hmm.
And so when I went in there, 19, kind of a knucklehead, really just wanted to do drugs, and I was showed away really quickly to get what I wanted and still protect myself to a certain level. I had a
Yeah.
guy pull me into his cell and he told me, there's two dangerous people in prison. There's people with a brain and there's people without a brain. And you have the choice to choose which one you are. So you should make the right decision. And
Hmm.
he kind of took me under his wing and like really educated me and schooled me and like really laced me up on like, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, and if you're gonna participate in that, you got to do it smart. So yeah, I had a blast my first prison term, and really kind of matured in my criminality and tightened a lot of stuff up. And so went back out there, and they were right when I was getting out of prison, they were switching to AB 109. So they were letting the counties control and supervise parolees.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so the deal was, I got out on parole. 3 months later, I got put on AB 109, and I was told, I need a year. You need to do 12 months disciplinary free, and we'll let you off. I was supposed to be on parole for 3 years.
Mhm.
Needless to say, I did not make it the year.
Wow.
I ended up on the run, and that was where I got really into the drug trade. I ended up selling a cop undercovers. I sold them a quarter pound, and then they busted me on the pound deal and headed right back to prison.
Wow.
That prison term was where my opinion of prison changed. I was exposed to some really dangerous shit and just some situations in there where I was like, oh my gosh, like it's real, right? Like I could see myself ending up here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it was
And
not maybe like a summer camp that it was maybe the first time, or,
no,
the fun time. It was totally different. What else? I mean, what else was but it's the same system. So it was it was prison, so it was over 1 year because like they've got because in Florida we've got county, which is usually up to 1 year, and then you've got the
yeah,
state prison, which is over 1 year.
yeah.
Um, so you were up into the state prison system
Hmm.
in California. Just was it a different prison that you
Hmm.
went to? So it was a
Yeah.
different spot.
So the first prison that I went to was Chino. Everybody knows
Okay.
about Chino,
Yeah,
right? Like,
everybody's heard Chino, yeah.
yeah. Movies,
Yeah.
reputation, headquarters of the Mexican mafia, like the whole nine, right? Like I ended up in the hole back there for 11 months on my first term.
Mhm.
And dude, it was so my second prison term went to a different prison, went to a different level, and really saw pretty quickly that, like this isn't really a game, right? This is people are playing this game, particular game. They're playing for keeps, and I wasn't willing to play that game, and so I kind of had some self searching and introspection, and I was like, I just don't want to do this. And so I kind of made it a point to change certain things so that I was taking less chances and I was putting myself in um, not as great a risk as going back to prison. But so I get out. That was 28 months. So the first time it was 36 months. The second time was 28 months.
Okay.
And so I did some things different, right? But I still wasn't ready to really make those changes that really dictated to like living a greater life. And so the next time around, which there was no stop, right? It was a good 11-year run where I was just going to prison, getting out, going back on the run, going to prison, getting out, going back on the run. My last term, I mean, my second term where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I took a
Yeah.
deal for no paper. So I did more time, no probation, no parole. And
Mhm.
um, and so I get out and I'm free to make my own decisions. I don't got to check in. I don't got to do any of that, right? And so I ended up going to I get out, hit the ground running, really, really quickly realize I'm going right back to prison. So I mean, within a month,
Wow.
like some big things happened, and I was like, I've got to get out of here. So kind of hightailed it out of town and went to treatment for the second time. And I went to the Salvation Army. So I did a 7-month program at the Salvation Army and kind of got my feet under me a little bit. But I didn't want to stop using drugs. And so I did what I had to do to kind of get my feet under myself and then immediately started using again.
So
Um,
was that Salvation Army treatment, like court ordered, or was it just self-imposed?
no, it was self-imposed.
Okay.
I lost and cut all contact with my family and
Uh-huh.
knew I wasn't done doing drugs, so I couldn't go back to them. Because that family member that kind of like brought me into his criminal world, I watched him burn a bridge and rebuild it and burn the bridge and rebuild it and burn the bridge and rebuild it and then burn the bridge and not have the ability to rebuild that. And so I made decisions when I was 21 that I wasn't gonna go back to them until I was ready, like until I knew I wasn't gonna reburn that bridge. And
Okay.
so, so I stayed away, right? Like they didn't want me around anyway, but I also didn't want to be around. Uh,
Yeah.
I just got social media for the first time. Like I got an Instagram and a Facebook, and it's really all around the podcast. And I used to tell people that I don't have social media because the government and they're watching you and all that stuff. But the reality was I didn't want my family to find me. Um,
Mm.
And so, you know, that treatment was self-imposed because I couldn't do that on my own. Like, I couldn't find a way to house myself and like make the right decisions in order to get it is not easy to go from the place that I was at in life to being a contributing productive member of society. It's just it is not a page turn, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
process. There's things that have to be done, changes that have to take place. Also, I've got a criminal record that, you know, by the time I was 24, if you looked at it, you would think I was 40 years old, you
Yeah.
know? And so, um, I have hurdles, right? So I put myself in treatment, got my feet under me, and just enough to have a job, support myself. I ended up mixing concrete at a brick company, right? And so I got paid pretty good. I also lived on site, like at the plant, and so it was cool. It was a cool situation. Um,
Did they have housing, or were you just like hiding out living?
so me and the other batch boys would open the plant because we'd have to get the mixers going and we'd have to start
Yeah.
like making orders to pull bricks and like pull the material. And so we'd be there at 2 in the morning. And so they got a trailer and they allowed us to stay there to open the plant.
Oh, okay.
And
All right. Yeah.
so
So
it
you
was
kind of
cool.
had something. Yeah. So it kind of worked, it gave you a place to be, and then you had somewhat purpose for what you're doing. Or
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, the purpose was less important. The means
Yeah.
was the most important thing, right? Like, I ended up losing that job because I was strung out the whole time. We
Mhm.
rigged the mixers so that you could keep them open and they would run, right? And they had a video camera on me, and I'm like literally standing up, nodding
Falling
out
over. Yeah.
over an open mixer, right? And they're like,
Jesus.
we've dropped hammers in there, and it's mangled these hammers, dude. Like, so
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
body goes in there, it's cookies done,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they're like, dude, they pulled me into the office. They're like, dude, what is going on? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just tired. They're like, all right, like, watch out, like, be careful, right? Two more times, they're like, you got to drug test this dude.
Yeah.
And, you know, sure enough, and then they went through their property, right? It's their house, found all the paraphernalia and like, just, it was a mess, dude. It was a mess.
And that was
Um,
heroin back then.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
heroin.
Wow. How long would you say you were, while in prison and then out of prison, using heroin?
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
17 years of IV drug use. Got to the point where I didn't have veins anymore. Like, I work out really religiously. I work with Taylor. Built a whole gym in my garage, you know, like, I
Cool.
work out, I stay hydrated, I do the whole nine, right? My veins still are not back, you know, like, it got to the point where I was muscling drugs and I would get these abscesses, dude, like the size of a softball, right? And
Yeah.
just not caring, like, how, you know how dangerous that, like, I have these active infections that, I mean, it looks like there's a softball under my skin.
Yeah.
And I know people that have died from one, and I would have like 3 or 4 at the same time. They're
Oh, wow.
massively painful too.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah.
I tell this story. I knew this chick. Uh, she went into the hospital and had like an infection in her arm, and they told her, if you leave, you're gonna lose your arm. So she was there for 2 days, right? She comes back to the streets. She's around for a week or so, and then she ends up disappearing for a month. She comes back with one arm, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Because it did happen.
yeah, and she learned how to shoot up with her feet. And people would ask her, like, "Dude, why did you do that?" She was like, "I couldn't stay away. Like,
Yeah.
I had to be down here." And so, you know, it's like the decisions and the sacrifices and the things that are important to the person who's A, actively addicted, but B, living on the streets are just so different than what a healthy contributing person, what they prioritize.
Yeah.
And so my priorities, for the majority of my life, my entire adult life until I was 31, were not normal, right? And so the decisions that I was making were, when I look back on it now, it's like, dude, what was I doing? Right. But
Yeah.
at the time, it made total sense.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah, we'll take a quick break, and then
Cool.
we'll come back and we'll just keep getting into it because you've got some crazy stories to tell. So
For
we'll be right
sure.
back. Yo, what's up, guys? I want to do a follow up. I used to run an ad or commercial for my friends at HPTRT, Human Performance, talking about like testosterone therapy or all that kind of stuff. I finally have been I've been using it. I've been a member of the program for over 6 months now. I got my second round of labs, and I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. When I first was tested, I was at 330. I'm a 43-year-old man, and my test was at 330. I didn't even go through the injections. I'm going through a couple different types of prescription pills that they have to help me out. All legal, all on the up and up. But after this 6 months, my test has gone up to 910. As somebody who works out 3 to 4 times a week, wants to stay young, wants to stay healthy with all this stuff. It's helped with all kinds of stuff, like my focus, continuing to get me like the best sleep that I've ever gotten. I've enjoyed it. So go over to hp-trt.com and check it out. You can bring, if you've had lab work within the last 6 months, you can bring your own lab work and they'll start you up. If you haven't, then you pay for the lab work through them. Or you can just go to your own doctor and do your lab work through your normal insurance, which I'm sure has a zero copay, if anything. And use the code DSP20, and that'll get you 20% off forever, as long as you're a member, as long as you use Human Performance. So it's a great program, good people over there. So go ahead and get it done. And if you've been thinking about it, or if you've looked at recent tests in your testosterone, and you want a boost of that kind of stuff, get into it, because you can also get the testosterone through them as well as peptides and other things. So DSP20 will get you 20% off. Good luck. Hey, what's up, guys? Want to talk to you about Tasty Gains. They're a sponsor of Counterculture Inc. We love them, been using them, and I enjoy it. It's a little gummy. It's got like 1 gram of creatine in there, so you take 3 a day, knock it out. It's making a difference, and it gives me a little bit of sweetness too during the day. I can keep them right in my backpack in my car at work, and they don't melt. You can see this is the mango pineapple. It's my favorite flavor. But check it out. Use code Counterculture to get 20% off on Tasty Gains. So check out Tasty Gains. They're great. So get your swole on. We're back. Yeah, I mean, I almost like don't even know where to go from here. I just kind of let you keep rolling with it because so 17 years of using, you still, you're out. Well, not even we're not even at the end of 17 years, but
Yeah.
so
Halfway through right now.
yeah, so you've lost you've lost that job at the concrete facility, and then just like, where do you find yourself from there?
Yeah. So and mind you, this is like the very short of the long, right?
Mhm.
I'm just giving you like the glossary of what's
Of
going on.
course, yeah.
So I end up very, very quickly. So I have some friends up there, right, in San Bernardino County, and I very, very quickly find myself falling into old patterns, right? And so we are doing credit card fraud, and I learn how to make credit cards. And so
Okay.
I don't have to be on the streets. I don't got to run cards. I don't got to do any of that. They're giving me the information, and I'm literally printing the cards, right? I'm making
Mhm.
stacks of cards a day, and they've got smokers and gang members and all these people that are they're just out there running cards all day.
Yeah,
And
because that's
I'm
a huge network. We were talking about it beforehand, and
yeah,
I was telling you at the beginning of my career, and I'll say it for this just briefly for this show. Just the beginning of my career, it was chasing bad guys. It was guys on the street, burglars, feet going into windows and setting up on houses, getting into car chases, dog bites, all that kind of stuff. and it's gone by the wayside. And I think the period of time when you're talking is probably during the skimmer era, when
Yeah.
you've got multifacets of a network of people working in fraud. And I remember we caught a guy working at the movie theater that just had the card skimmer, and he was the cashier, and he could get 75 swipes into the skimmer, and then he sold it for $100
Yep.
to it goes back into the group. He's just one guy in the scheme, but there's
Yeah.
$100, and then they get that information to you, and then you're now printing. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But I
that's
remember
kind
that
of
was
where,
that was years ago, that the skimmer
yeah,
era. I mean, I know it still exists, but I think that was the theme at the time,
it
was
most
that was how
definitely
you were
was.
getting those numbers.
So this is 2015.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it started, right? And then very quickly, what we were realizing was that people are kind of catching on to the fake skimmer on top of the actual
Yeah.
credit card swiper. And so
Oh yeah,
I was
gas
living,
stations and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
gas stations.
Yeah.
And San Bernardino is the biggest county in the United States, and it is a desert, right? It's also one
Yeah.
of the biggest ghettos that I've ever seen in my life, right?
I've heard one of my wife's cousins lives out there, and she talks about the meth
Yeah.
that's cooked out there in San Bernardino and all that. So yeah, it's it sounds rough.
It's the Wild West. It really is. Everybody's strapped, everybody's got guns. This was right when the weed dispensary game started getting big in California, where like the average person could start a dispensary.
Okay.
And so that was another whole angle that we had. But the credit cards was kind of like my bread and butter. I didn't have to be on the streets. I was really good at making cards, and
Mhm.
I was indoors, so I was insulated from like taking those chances, and so I was happy about that. I was making a lot of money, and then we started hearing about card makers getting kidnapped, right? And so we got a different house. Like it got really, really crazy. And
Who are they getting
and
kidnapped by?
so the skimmers would tell people like, oh, I know these people, they're doing something, and gangs wanted in on the business. So they started finding people and kidnapping card makers.
Because you guys were basically like independent. You were just an independent criminal. If there
Yeah.
was a label to make it, you weren't necessarily a street gang or whatever. It was
Hmm.
you were just doing it for you were a business
Yeah.
without an LLC or without a licensing agreement with the state.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
businessmen, entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And so we kind of insulated ourselves with a gang, and then it got really just out of control, right?
Oh
Because
man.
the street gang culture is very different than the prison gang culture. There is no honor amongst thieves on the streets.
Hmm.
Um, and so it got really hectic, and we kind of tried to get away from the skimmers, right? And so I started making connections on the dark web and like really finding like how can we get like big banks of bins, right? A bin is the number, like
Hmm.
the actual profiles for the cards, they're called bins, right? And so how can we get like huge caches of bins and not take these chances with these people on the streets anymore? So ended up connecting with a couple people overseas that had connections in credit card processing plants, right? Because most cards get swiped, the signals go overseas where the processing the cost of processing credit card swipes drastically drops if you go overseas. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so found out a bunch of information, ended up connecting with a bunch of people and all over the dark web, and started buying thousands of cards at a time. And now it was like a whole different ball game. We've got an
Yeah.
endless amount of, I mean, it was crazy. Sending people over like across state lines to run cards, and like shipping credit cards, and like getting boxes of cash back. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And so, um, it really hit the fan though. Like, and my drug use accelerated, and now I'm using meth too, right? So
Mm.
heroin and meth, and I'm not geared for speed, right? I start tripping out, and like, uh, I literally one day picked everything up and left everything. I mean, all of the money, all of my machines, like my entire lab, just left everything and told them you can have it, and went back to San Diego. Like it really just got really crazy.
Right,
And
because like just to bring you back, you said you're not geared for speed. Like because you're talking you've been a heroin addict for this long, and heroin's more of a depressant, more of a it pulls you in. Obviously, I don't have much first person knowledge of it, but and then you introduce meth, which is hyperspeed. So
yeah,
you're switching gears on a body that's already probably functionally not at the greatest level, and then you're switching gears and putting it to a red line, which okay, so you bailed out, collected up, and now
yeah.
you're
I cut my losses and said it's not worth it. Just the paranoia and the sleep deprivation, and then additionally, like, it's only a matter of time. Like that kind of thing does not last forever. It's either going to be the cops come and get you, or someone else comes and get you, right?
yeah,
And I at that point in time, I was more scared of somebody else coming and getting me, because the stories were they were kidnapping card makers and like cuffing them to sinks and like making them produce cards, and like just they're slaves, right? Like, and I
yeah,
was like really scared of the situation that I was in. So I dipped, right? I cut all my losses, took whatever I could as far as money, and I went back to San Diego. And kind of like replugged back in with my people in San Diego, and they're robbing banks, right? Like they're strategically robbing banks, and so I'm kind of like on the periphery of what's going on with the core group of people that I was connected with, and they had some other stuff going on, and so I just at that point in my life, like I just kind of wanted to slam heroin and not deal with anything, right? And so I did like the bare minimum to continually feed my habit. And so I was living in North County, driving down to San Diego every day, kind of hanging out with the guys, and then leaving and going back to North County. I was really just trying to insulate myself. Slowly got pulled back into daily, nightly hanging out with these people and like participating in criminal activities, and stuff got real again, right? And it was like it got to the point where a job was supposed to get done. My wife now actually was my girlfriend at the time, and she convinced me like don't go, like I have a really bad feeling, don't go, just don't go. So she convinced me to stay. Well, that night they got busted, one of them got killed, they got cracked by the cops, one of them got killed, and two of them are doing life in prison.
wow,
And I mean, and at that point everybody split, right? We
yeah,
know that the cops are looking at us, but I didn't have options. Like a bunch of them went to Vegas, a couple of them went to Arizona, and they just, they left. They really hightailed it out of town. Um, and by the time that happened, though, like, dude, like we had a car parked out front of my girlfriend's house with guns in it, and like, just shit was really hitting the fan. And so when everybody left, I was kind of like, okay, literally by myself now. I have my girlfriend, and I can kind of like regroup and just kind of do something different. So I started hanging out downtown, and really just hanging out with homeless people, and like just doing drugs, like going across the border, like getting drugs, and like selling a little bit, but really just kind of like small time and stuff, just enough to pay for
yeah,
my habit. And then that lifestyle, the homeless lifestyle, like really got a grip on me. And uh, my girlfriend, she's kind of high maintenance, and she's like a white redheaded girl, and
mhm,
so she was not about that life as far as like the homelessness. She did her own little thing or whatever, and so she would try to keep us housed, and I would get us kicked out, dude. I got us kicked out of probably 14 different places
oh wow,
in a couple of years, and it was
yeah,
like lost the down payment, lost the deposit, lost, and just like it was a mess, right? And but slowly like her and I became like more and more bonded, and it got to the point where we had a conversation, And I convinced her, like, let's just be homeless. Like, that's money that we can be spending on drugs. Like, that's responsibility that we're not really geared for right now. Like, and
Yeah.
so we kind of came to a compromise. Like, she wanted to be in a hotel like a few times a week to shower, and like, she's a girl, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't. It's yeah.
we made a
Just like
deal.
they say with girls in the military on the front lines and stuff. There's just there's girl things that living on the streets doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's easier for guys, but it's easier for guys.
Well,
So yeah,
it's much easier for a guy that doesn't give a fuck about showering, right? So
yeah, 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 yeah. I know
and
plenty
then
of those too.
yeah, I mean, hey, it's another responsibility that I just didn't care for.
Yeah, wow,
Um
yeah,
and so so the compromise was made. We ended up being homeless, and then just slowly, right? Like that lifestyle, just like any lifestyle, it becomes fully enveloping, right? And she next thing you know, it was like we wouldn't get hotels 3 times a week, maybe once, and then maybe not once a week, and then maybe once a month. And it was next thing you know, it was like a year down the road and we're full blown homeless, right? And
yeah,
but we're still going across the border and getting drugs and hustling and doing whatever we were doing. So we were never like the homeless people on the corner with the sign. We were never the homeless people that were like spanging for change or like asking for change or anything like that. Like we always had we had a big habit, right? We're doing
hmm
heroin, we're doing meth, we're smoking weed every day. Like we're doing a lot of drugs, right?
wow,
And so
yeah.
it is
It's got to be
expensive.
expensive.
It
Yeah,
was, right? It was expensive. But we're 15 minutes from TJ, right? And so we could
yeah,
go get high quality drugs for really cheap, bring it across, like whatever, networking, bring it across for other people and get paid, whatever, right? Like, so we were always comfortable at least, right? And there, San Diego is a big homeless community. It's paradise, right? Like perfect weather year round.
perfect
And
weather. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've been out to California many times, and stuff might change a little bit now, but I mean, I was amazed at the hillside highway Hiltons, basically.
yes.
And I'm making that name up right now, but like full blown apartment buildings built of
Hmm.
tarps and pallets and uh, gathering of items, and it looks like these guys are living their best life, or best they can, or best they want to live, what they're interested in. I mean, I got a guy that in my zone at work he's got a generator. He goes and gets
Hmm.
gas from the gas station from money. He's got a small generator that he does stuff. Well, he doesn't anymore because they just took out the entire woods that he was living in for 10 years. But he had a rainwater funnel that to catch rainwater. You're not doing that much in San Diego, but a rainwater funnel and all that kind of stuff. So he was living his thing, but he's got not severe mental illness, but mental illness, for sure. But anyways, so yeah, you guys were, you know, living it by choice and doing your thing.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, right? Like they estimate about 2,500 people live downtown homeless in San Diego. Um,
Hmm.
over the 3 or 4 years that was my lifestyle, I'd done drugs and hung out with probably all of them, except for 100 that were actually mentally ill. The rest of
Uh-huh.
us were maybe not there by choice initially, but 100% like entrenched in the lifestyle to the point where public facing, you'll see those interviews on the streets where like the news will come in or like
Yeah.
agencies will come in and do interviews, and everybody says the same thing, right? Like, we just need help, we don't know how to get out of this, and da, da, da. That's public facing. The truth
Yeah.
is none of them want to be out of those situations,
Yeah,
right? The
I want to
conversations.
talk to you. I want to interrupt you, and I'm going to run a commercial real quick. But
Cool.
that's one of the things that I definitely planned on talking to you about was the categories, if you will,
Yeah. Hmm.
about homeless individual, people that are homeless or unhoused, whatever we want to call them on the news today. So I'll run
Yeah.
this real quick, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Want to let you know I have a new website format. Same website, donutshoppodcast.com, but this time I'm running it through Shopify. Make it much easier to purchase items because aside from the hats that I have up there, Donut Shop Podcast, PVC hats, the blue line snapback, laser mesh, nice and clean on the inside, comfy hats. I have some other swag, t-shirts, can koozies, just some other stuff that I put up there. I'm running the website through Shopify, and so it'll make it real easy for you guys to go on and purchase some stuff and support the show. So thanks for tuning in and following the show, and don't forget donutshoppodcast.com. Thanks. What's in the cup? Guys, what's in my cup? Blackout Coffee Company. We joined up with them. I've been drinking it and I enjoy it, and I think you may enjoy it as well. So you can go over to our website and click the link, or you can just go to their website, blackoutcoffee.com, and use our coupon code to get 10% off. The code is DSP10. So go over, check it out. But yeah, as you were getting into it, I was like, oh, there's one of my questions. And I was talking in the car the other day to my parents about it. And I said, obviously from what I see, and then on the streets dealing with people, and then from you live in first person in that. I have an old interview or from before with the show where we talked to a guy who was telling the story of a homeless man who's a Vietnam veteran. He was a Green Beret. He was the shortest Green Beret. He was a captain, and so he from Vietnam. He had money, not to say he was rich, but he had an apartment in Miami area, but chose to live in the median area that had woods because he just kind of developed the affinity for living in the woods when he was in Vietnam. And so when he was back, he'd meet up with old army buddies, and they'd go out in a limousine and all that kind of stuff. They'd pull up to his apartment. Everybody'd get out, and he'd go, "All right, guys, good night." And he'd like wander off into the street and go, live as a homeless man. He had storage, he had all kinds of stuff. So, and then sadly he got killed by a hit and run driver out in the streets. And then I see people with mental illness that through their mental illness choose to be homeless. Like there's a girl in my zone who likes to live the homeless life, even though her mom has a townhouse and she comes back there to shower, but otherwise she tries to stay on the streets all the time. And then there are other people that just due to mental illness, maybe lack of disability funding from the state or financial or family support, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting here telling the categories that I think you can, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, or you tell me kind of from what you've seen or what for a fact.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's circumstances are different, and for the most part, I was really enmeshed with the people that were out there to do drugs, right? And there is no, as far as we're concerned, the homeless community, right? Like, so when I was out there, 17th Street in San Diego was like the spot, right? To have a tent on 17th Street, which that's where all the drug dealers were, that's where all of the drive-by food vans would come, like drop off food. That was like the spot to be homeless, right? In order to have a tent on that street, there was rules, right? Like you couldn't pee or poop on the street. You couldn't do this or that. You had to make sure that your area was clean. There was no trash. So there was like a culture involved on 17th Street. 17th Street tees with commercial, and commercial was where like the crazy stuff was happening. Like just like that's where there was no rules, and like it was the Wild West of the homeless scene, right? People getting jumped and murdered and like raped and just crazy stuff down there.
Yeah.
But literally on a street that touches it, it's like a whole different world, right? And so there's like within the homeless culture, there's still subcultures of different things that are going on. And like, there's like the gang members that are homeless to sell drugs. And then there's like the punk rock kids that are literally homeless because they're punk rock. And then there's like in downtown San Diego, there's a huge contingency of homeless vets, right? But they're also homeless to do drugs. There was a guy kind of famously in that community, millionaire, literally a millionaire, had a Bentley that he would park down the street, and like, but he lived his entire life. He had a family, like the whole nine, like had a life that he had established to become successful. And then when he was allowed to just disconnect and live the life that he wanted to, he was homeless. He wasn't
Wow.
going on Bahama trips and like living on yachts and spending money. He was hanging out with us,
That
like
was, and he was a drug user as well.
he was a weed smoker.
Okay, weed smoker, but just chose that, like these guys are my friends. This is my
Yes.
way of detaching from that society,
Yeah.
because there's, just like you said, 17th Street has its rules and the society there. He's as a millionaire living in some sort of a society and expected to act a certain way, expected to represent a certain way. So I mean, I would say without, putting words in his mouth, but yeah, it seems like, if this is a way that he wanted to live. Like these were people that, you guys were people that accepted him into your own society,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to.
And it wasn't a secret that he had a lot of money, right?
Mhm,
But it was never he never gave people money. It wasn't like
mhm.
a thing that he like used his money to like get in good with people. That was his thing, right? And
Yeah,
it just was what it was. And so that's kind of like a good example of the level of acceptance that that specific culture has of just other people. Um,
wow.
Additionally, it is paradise, right? Like it is perfect weather for being homeless year round. I mean, it gets kind of cold during the winters, but nothing too crazy. You got
Yeah.
people that are homeless in New York in the winter. So
Yeah, no, it's yeah,
um,
we look at it when we go to like DC and New York and stuff, and it's like, man, how do people live here? And then on the flip, you think like South Florida might be great, but there's inclement weather, there's a lot of rain and stuff like that. There's a lot of bugs, and
yeah,
Southern California just has almost none of that.
none,
Like,
right? And
you
there's
know,
no humidity, right? So like
yeah,
I live in Houston now. Um, and I watch the news and they're like talking about their homeless problem or whatever. I'm like, I have to intentionally drive to see a homeless person here,
yeah,
and it's like I know they're here, but the reality is I couldn't do this. I couldn't be. It is so humid here. Like the
yeah,
the weather is so brutal, just like Florida, right? It's
yeah.
brutal.
Yeah,
But
you guys get a crazy amount of rain in Houston too, so you
that
get a lot of
too.
rain coming in from the Gulf, so flooding, all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so San Diego is like I never really thought about it while I was homeless, like how fortunate I was to be homeless in San Diego. But so yeah, it's just people come from all over the country to be homeless in San Diego. Um,
Yeah,
and so it was a conducive situation to the way that I was living. Um, and so now at this point, I'm like living on my own. Well, I'm not. I'm not like a part of a group of people that's like committing organized crime for the first
yeah,
time since I was 17.
yeah. I
Like
was gonna
I
say
was,
17 probably.
yeah, on my own, right? But I got my girlfriend and she still has like her needs, right? And that was kind of something that weighed on me where it was like I know if she could have had her way, um that wouldn't have been the situation that we ended up in. And so that kind of always weighed on me. And then COVID hit, and I don't know what it was about COVID hitting. First of all, I don't know any homeless people that ended up with COVID. It
Right?
was like
Yeah.
they were immune from it because they didn't watch the news, is what we would say, right?
Is that, I mean, like we're not even putting tinfoil hats on. There's definitely conversation to be had about transmission of the virus, disease stuff, and how things worked. It's a super, squint the eyes at
Yeah,
these stories. So yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
I mean, it wasn't. So when they locked down the city, we were the only ones in the streets. Like there was nobody out except for us, right? And
Yeah.
we were like, oh my god, we had like run of the city. Like cops didn't want to talk to us. Like it was
Right.
like
Yeah,
it was
because homeless people were expected to be patient zero,
yes,
basically. You were probably the most infected. You probably all had AIDS, you have hepatitis, yeah, and then God forbid you sneeze on me, and then I'm gonna catch COVID and I'm gonna fall to the ground within the next 5 seconds. Like that's what the news created for us. And like you
yeah,
said, you guys weren't watching the news, so you had no clue. Or less of a clue.
I mean, all we knew, because it was a conversation. It was a massive conversation across the country at the time. That was what was going
Mhm.
on. Lockdowns, masks, like all this. I never wore a mask, not once.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the reason why I went into that bank is because you couldn't go into a bank without a mask, right?
Right.
So it was like
Right.
perfect timing. Um, but right when COVID happened, I started I started going crazy. Like I started spiraling mentally.
Mhm.
Um,
Along with many
and
of us, like you weren't the only one for sure. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do get why like the isolation can definitely exacerbate mental illness. That wasn't it
Yeah.
for me.
Mhm.
I can't put my finger on what it was that started me on the road that I went on. Because nothing really changed for me as far as my day to day, right?
Uh-huh.
But I started taking a lot more chances that I typically wasn't doing at that time. Um, Breaking into houses, like just doing really dumb stuff, right? I got caught. I sold drugs to cops again multiple times. Well, at the time, during the COVID, like the height of it, right? So I would get arrested and I found like a loophole where I would tell cops, like, I would get arrested and tell them that I had COVID and they would bring me to the hospital, right?
Mhm.
And that worked a couple times where like they just leave you there. They arrest you, they don't book you, but the arrest is on the record. So it's out there, right? You're gonna have to answer that at some point. So they would just leave you at the
Ah,
hospital. They're not
yeah.
trying to
Okay.
go in there.
Wow.
And so when that stopped working, I started telling them that I swallowed drugs, and then they would bring me to the hospital and leave me there. And then uh, I would just, dude, I got arrested for weapons charges, drug charges, sales charges, residential burglary, vandalism charge. Like that year, it was the year of Matt racking up charges.
Mhm.
Um,
And
and
just a
just
spiral of caring for yourself, probably.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, the little bit of caring that I guess I did for myself was like just don't get arrested, right? Like that
mhm.
went out the window and I was getting arrested. I got arrested probably 20 times that year just
Wow.
for random things like maybe didn't like go to jail, but like also at the time drugs had been heavily decriminalized, right? And then
Mhm.
all of that like all the lashback from all the political stuff that was going on with the police systems in the United States. Drugs basically
Oh, yeah.
became legal. Yeah, drugs basically became legal in the streets. I would get arrested. I would get arrested. Like they would put the cuffs on me. I would have a not personal amount of drugs on me, and they would write me a ticket. Right.
Yeah.
A couple ounces of meth, like 7 grams of heroin, whatever. And I would get a ticket, or they wouldn't even ticket me. They would throw it away or take it or whatever. Right. And so,
Yeah. Wow.
um, but I was one of the people that, like, when certain cops saw me, they were stopping me. Right.
Because they
And,
just knew you were holding or they knew you.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I was out there, like, and I didn't give a fuck about what they caught me with. I mean, I was also that person that would smoke fentanyl off a foil in front of cops, walking with it in my hand down the street. Like, just it gotten that crazy downtown where like they weren't fucking with people because of COVID, right? And so
Yeah.
it got really out of control, really, really fast. And then Thanksgiving of 2020, we actually had a hotel. And looking back on it now, I kind of understand. We got a hotel Thanksgiving Day. I think the night before Thanksgiving, we got a hotel. So Thanksgiving Day, we had a hotel. The day after, we still had the hotel. And she told me like, "Yo, I'm pregnant." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "And I'm leaving you, basically.
Wow.
You're dangerous. You're gonna get me killed. You're gonna get us killed." I mean, just things that were going on across the border, and like there was a bunch of things going on in my life where it was like very dangerous to be around me. Um,
Mhm.
People were looking for me. I was robbing people. I was taking money from people that I really shouldn't have, and disappearing with it. And like, just I was taking a lot of Xanax at the time, so I was fully unaware of a lot of the decisions that I was making. And I would like come back 3 days later with, I was supposed to like go across the border, get all the drugs, bring it back, like orchestrate like people coming back with it. I would come back 3 days later with one shoe, no backpack, no money, no drugs, and they'd be like, "Dude, what?" I was like, I don't know. Like I
And you
have
had gone
no
over there with
memory.
money to purchase it, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you had someone else's money and then used it up or whatever you did,
Yeah.
and then now you're coming back empty-handed and no shoes, you
With
know?
no recollection of what happened. And so all these
Wow.
people are like, dude, he's full of shit. Like he knows what happened. So they would go like try to track down where I'd been and like what I'd done. And it was like, this guy's taking so much Xanax, he has no clue what he's doing. And so they kind of figured that out and they're like, no more Xanax. And like tried to put me on this like no Xanax diet. That didn't work because now I'm just sneaking it or I'm going to like places that don't know me and getting it. And like it just turned into a mess, dude. Like it was a real
So
mess.
you were still valuable to these people just because you were so willing to do anything at the time? Like, why do they even
So
keep you around if you were such a liability?
it wasn't them, right? Like
Uh,
I had been so because of the group of people that I was attached to, like I already had like a level of like trust and not power necessarily, but like status, right? Like
okay.
everybody knew like that's who that was. This is what he does. Like they weren't just gonna touch me, right? Like and so I had a good reputation. I had always been known to like put stuff together and like had like success in like the moves that we were making, right?
Yeah.
Normally like been able to come up with like some really good hits and like just really, really fell apart though at the time. And so they were like they were watching the deterioration of who I used to be, which was hazmat, right? Like that was my street handle. Everybody knew me as hazmat. And it was like they watched the deterioration of this person from like
Oh, okay. So that was, yeah, you were going down, but you had such a
yes,
reputation, such a previous history with all these people that you weren't a fuck up like you were at this time ever before.
right. It
So you
got
were
to the point
valuable. Yeah.
where um these these historically drug like real hardened criminals, real drug addict people were telling me to go to treatment.
Yeah.
Right. It like got
You were
into that
scaring
point.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Um
Yeah.
so the deterioration happens. She gets pregnant and she's like, I can't, like, this is not working. You got to do something. She was trying to push me, like, go to treatment. I'll be here. Like, the baby's coming. Like, don't worry. Like, um, but unless you figure something out, I can't be with you. So now I'm on my own. I have no accountability. I have
Yeah.
nobody that I have to like answer to. And now I really spiral. Like I'm making really dumb decisions. Now I'm smoking PCP. Now I'm doing like just everything under the sun. And for years, right? For years, I'd never robbed a bank. And like I'd watched all of my friends and like all this stuff go down. And I was like, I was a cog in like that whole wheel. But now I was like, okay, I'm putting stuff together in my head, the genius that I am, right? Like, wait,
Yeah.
you have to wear a mask. Um, nobody is like paying attention to me right now. I've told my girlfriend for years that I'm going to end up robbing banks, and she just kept stopping me. Now I don't have her. It's like everything in my head. It's like, oh, everything's
The
snapping into
stars
place.
are
Now I get it.
aligning. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And keep in mind, like, she tells me the day after Thanksgiving. So let's say the end of November. I have basically 3 weeks of just, dude, running myself into the dirt where I'm finally like, you know what? I'm just gonna rob these banks, right? And so, um, 3 days after Christmas, I'm like in my head, I'm like, oh, there's people are gonna start depositing money in banks, and like I'm gonna be able to like get away with money and like all this stuff, right? And so, um, I wake up that morning and I'm like, today's the day. Sorry, this was 2 days after Christmas. I'm like, today's the day. And so I start like staking out banks, right? I'm like, okay, this isn't just I run in there, demand the money and run out. Like I've got to like strategize. How am I going to do this? What's going to happen? Do I need somebody to help me? Do I not? Like, is this going to be something that I do? So anyway, spend like a whole day strategizing, watching banks, trying to figure out which bank would be the best one. Um, the next day I'm like, okay, today's the day. I'm doing it. Right. And so I get as high as humanly possible because, of course, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do
Why
this
not?
without, yeah. Um,
Your
go to
main
the
partner.
bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. My main partner. Right. Go to the bank, kind of set it up, write the note. Um, I developed this entire plan with this guy where he wanted to do like an insurance fraud thing where he was going to let me use his car, but I had to burn his car after I did the bank rob, after I got away. Right. And so I was like, the night before, high as a kite, I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. Right. Like I could do like
Yeah.
the movies. Like then the next morning, I like kind of come down a little bit. Like I'm starting to get the anxiety of like, okay, I'm actually going to do this. And I'm like, wait, that's a fucking terrible idea. So, um, so I figure out like how I'm going to do this on foot, right? There's a trolley, and if I time it correctly, I can run from the bank, get on the trolley, and I could be miles and miles away, right? Like by the
Yeah.
time anybody's and I was always told if you're not in and out of there in less than 30 seconds, you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
So I plan this all out. I'm like watching this trolley schedule, and I'm like timing like how long is it on the deck so that I can like run over there. I'm like, when do I need to actually do this? So got everything timed out perfectly, run in there. I cut everybody in line. Are you an Eminem fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got that in Criminal, he goes and robs that convenience store.
Yeah.
And
Thank
the
you.
first thing that yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I quote part of what he says to the teller, and like, and in my head, I'm like, oh dude, I'm so smooth, right?
Yeah. I'm so
And
smooth. I'm the best. I wish somebody was
yeah,
filming this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Well, they were, but
Yeah. 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 That's true.
um so I get in there, but on the note it says I have a bomb and I'll kill everybody if you call the cops. And so I'm in and out. I get a few grand. I run, get on the trolley. Thing worked perfectly. Plan's great. Everything works, right? And so now I'm 4.5, 5 miles away. I have my mask on still. I'm like taking the paper clips out of the money on the trolley and like leaving them there, and like um go under this bridge. I get off the trolley, get under this bridge, like take all my clothes off, change my appearance. Like I'll show you the booking picture later, but I have really long hair at the time. So when I was in the bank, like everything was covered, everything was tied up. I had a hood on, a mask, a hat. So now I take everything off and I've just got long hair, and like I look totally different, changed my complete appearance. Right. And so, um, I spend like a couple days literally giving money away, buying people hotels, and I developed this plan like, okay, this was so easy. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this until I get caught. And then when I get caught, like I'm just going to hold court on the streets, and that's just going to be it. I'm going to go out with a blaze of glory.
Oh, wow.
Genius.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm staying at Connect's house, and she's got family in Oklahoma. So I'm like making this plan. I'm going to go out to Oklahoma for a few weeks, let stuff die down, get papers, like get a fake passport and ID and birth certificate, then move to Mexico, and then come across the border to rob banks and move back, and then go back. Right. And so
Oh, wow.
um, I I'm at her house, and I'm like, hey, take me to a weed shop. I want to buy a pound of weed to take over there with me. So she has her boyfriend take me to the weed shop. First thing he does, we pull out of the parking lot. He realizes he's going the wrong way and flips an illegal U-turn. There's a cop right behind us. Right. So they pull us over. I start immediately doing the whole shtick, right? Like false names, fake, the whole nine, right? Like fake names, fake stories. They catch on to the fake name thing. And now they're like, okay, what is this? Why is this kid giving us such a hard time? They start looking through arrest records. They're like, oh my God, this kid is wanted for all of this stuff, right? And I'm like, so in my head, I'm like, okay, but they're not gonna play this game with me longer than their shift, and I'm willing to play this game for as long as it takes. I'm not going to jail, right? And so get arrested. They bring me to the substation. I'm telling them these stories. I tell them I swallowed drugs. They're like, we don't give a fuck. Like you're going to jail today. Um, and so I get to the jail, tell the jail, hey, I swallowed drugs. The jail tells them if you want to book him, you've got to take him to the hospital and get him
Hospital.
cleared.
Yeah.
So the whole drive to the hospital, they're like, you are going to tell the hospital that you are refusing treatment. And if you don't, you're going to be sorry and da da da. So first thing I say to the hospital is like, I swallow drugs.
Yeah.
so that they'll take me, right? And so like, dude, at this point, this had probably happened 10 to 15 times where like the cop would maybe go into the waiting room, see all of these people sick with COVID, and they're like, you know what, I'm out of here, right? And so
Yeah. So
this
those
cop was like,
warrants are for the old I swallowed drugs stuff?
yes. So like
Okay. Yeah.
selling drugs to the cops,
Yeah. All
getting
that
busted
stuff.
by undercovers, the weapons charges, the residential burglaries, like all this
So
stuff that I had racked
the
up.
20 arrests all caught
Yeah.
up to you on a busted U-turn. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so so now we're going back to the jail. They didn't get it out, right? And so I go back to the jail and they're like, okay, what happened? I was like, they couldn't get it out. Jail's like, take him back and get him cleared. So the cop's pissed now. I go into the hospital. The whole situation happens in the hospital. They don't clear me, whatever. And he takes me back to the jail and he's on the phone with his supervisor and he gets permission to get overtime for as long as it takes to book me.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, maybe he's bullshitting. Like maybe they don't understand like how serious I am about not going to jail. I have this bank robbery like over my head. Like they don't know about any of that stuff. Right. So in my head, I'm like, if I get booked, I'm going down for that bank robbery. So I am, no matter what, not going to jail. So we do that like 2 more times. We do it a total of 3 times. Right.
Jeez.
And finally it's like, dude, now I'm coming off the drugs and I'm tired. He's pissed. And like, I give it to this cop, right? He didn't lay hands on me. He didn't like, it was like the verbal threats or whatever, but it was like,
Yeah.
didn't put hands on me and still treated me with like a level of respect. Right. And so, by the time I'm just like, you know what, dude, fuck it. Like, just take me in, whatever. And in my head, I'm like, I could game the jail and like tell them I have COVID. Like, I don't know. I'll try to get myself out of this. Right. Anyway, I get booked and now it's sleep time. Right now it's like, I got to come off these drugs. I got to kick heroin. I got to do all that stuff. So it's sleep time. So I sleep for 48 hours and then I kind of come out of it and I'm like, oh shit, I have arraignment in like 24 hours. So I call my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. Dude, you got to bail me out. Da, da, da. Like, you don't understand. You have to. Like, stuff's gonna hit the fan. So, because of COVID, the court restrictions around arraignments had changed. Now they have 2 weeks to arraign you, and I don't know this, right? So I'm panicking, and so a few days go by, and I'm like kind of out of the fog, and I'm like angry at my girlfriend. She's not gonna bail me out. I'm calling all these. Nobody's bailing me out, right? So they arrested me and I had a bunch of that cash on me still though. So I had a bunch of money on my books and, yeah, but at the time this was the whole COVID money time. Like everybody was getting money for like unemployment and like just random shit. Right.
Well, yeah.
So
So it didn't look bad that you had cash
yeah,
on you. Yeah.
yeah. So they let me keep the money. Anyway, about
Wow.
4 days after I get arrested, they're like, Handy, you got a doctor's appointment. I'm like, okay, whatever. Get in the elevator, and instead of going downstairs, we're going upstairs. And I'm like, did you guys like change things in the jail? They're like, didn't say anything, right? Then we get off the elevator. I'm like in a hallway. I'm like, what is this? Right? I see like a set of double doors, like more doors behind it. It's like, this is obviously not the infirmary, right? And I'm like, where am I? Like, what is going on? And then it starts to click, like, oh fuck, like I know what's about to happen, right? So they put me in they open the first set of doors, and in this hallway, all you can see through the glass is just more glass doors like down the hallway. So when they open that set of doors, it's interrogation rooms. I'm like, oh, right. So they put me in there. I'm in there for like 5 minutes, and all these dudes in suits come in. And I'm like, oh, right. And they're like, Mr. Handy, we're with the FBI, da da da.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like, and I'm ready to play ball with them, right? Like, I'm ready to like play games with them. And they're like, are you Matthew Handy? I was like, yes. They're like, do you recognize this person? It's me.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope, because it's me 4.5 miles away, finally taking off my mask. Right? They like
Oh.
they followed me, like, and they went
Yeah.
to the MTS, right? The MTS has camera systems, but then they went to all of the businesses on the route that I
Yep.
went to until I took my mask off,
Yeah.
right? And then they knew, right? So what happened was, the feds
They're
have like a
never gonna
really
know.
detailed, oh yeah, The feds have like a really detailed data bank on occurrences around arrests, right?
Yeah.
And so I found out later because I got on the FBI website like what actually happened. That cop that arrested me was so pissed off at me. He was looking through all the APBs. They didn't have a name. They just had my face, right? And he saw my face on the APBs, and he called the feds and he was like, "Hey, I arrested your guy yesterday. Here's his name. Here's his booking number. Da 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 da." So they came and booked me on those charges.
Oh, okay. So you
Um,
got tipped off because that's what I didn't want to interrupt you and be like, "Oh, they got you on the money." I mean, it's not like whenever, but nowadays when I put somebody in, if they have money, we have to feed it into a machine. So the
yes,
machine's most likely going to, if it's, I don't know if it does that, capture serial numbers, which in turn, if it was your situation, the that might have tipped off the FBI immediately. In a
yeah,
perfect world, I would think, but who knows if those lines of communication are even open. But you know, that's
y-
that's what I thought you were going to say, was that they got you on that cash you had, but then they just
no,
let you go off and spend that cash. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, all right. So
And
they
it's
got you.
interesting. The feds never even took the money. They knew, right? They knew I got arrested with cash. They were like, they straight up told me, they were like, "Look, you didn't get away with 500 grand. You got away with less than 10 grand. We don't give a fuck
Yeah.
about the money. Do you have a bomb?" I was like, "No, I don't have a bomb." That's
Wow.
really what they were
They were
worried
looking at
about.
anti-terrorism type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. They were like,
Wow.
"Dude, that was the dumbest thing that you could have done because most likely we wouldn't have even investigated this as heavily as we did if you didn't say you had a bomb on you." And they showed me like the note. They had like taken a picture of because there's glass all through the banks now. Like COVID
Yeah.
happened, they put glass. So I just slapped the note on the glass, and there's a video camera right there, right? And so they
Yeah.
took a picture of the note, and it said like, "I have a bomb in my backpack. I'll kill everybody if you call the
Yeah.
cops," like the whole nine, right? I didn't even have a backpack on, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what I told him. I was like, "Dude, I don't got a bomb. Like I didn't even have a backpack on." But yeah, so they
Wow.
slapped the thing down. They were like, "Do you recognize this person?" I knew where that picture was taken, so I was like, and I knew what this was about, so I was like, "I don't know that person." Then they like laid a bunch more pictures down. They're like, "Really, you're gonna play this game?" And I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, "I'm not gonna get away with this." Like
Mhm.
I might as well try for the first time to do the like tell them the truth thing and see how it plays out. I'm lucky that I did that because that played into what I ended up getting as far as a deal, right? They took all of that into consideration. I'd also never been sentenced to a program by the courts because I knew I wasn't done. And I had watched many other people burn that bridge. So I'd rather just go do the time. I could go do drugs in jail. I could go do drugs in prison. I don't want to play that game. Additionally, I had acquaintances and friends that I made in prison that so I knew a guy. He got out of 2 murder beefs because he got sent to this program, right? And he
Mm.
always told me, if your back's really ever up against the wall, write this place, and you can basically escape the consequences. And mind you, this
So
guy
you were
was
playing a card game, or a Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and you held on to that one spell
yes,
card and you never wasted it, or you never used it early in a fight, kind of thing, just
yeah,
for analogy purposes.
yeah,
And
for
so you
sure,
you held on to that card
yeah. And
for
so
until you really needed to pull it. Yeah.
and I really did because a couple months down the line, I mean, the due process of the court system says that this has to happen by this time, and this has to happen by this time, and this has to happen by this time, and like the wheels of justice turn slow, but they do turn on time, right? So,
Mhm.
um, but all of those timelines were elongated because of COVID, and just
Yeah.
the calendars were full, and like the jails were inundated, and it was just so. A couple months down the line, I get my first offer. The first offer is 33 years, and they're telling me straight up, this is the only deal you're gonna get. If you want something better, go to trial, and we got you at trial. Um, and so 6 months go by. That is the deal. They are not budging on that. 33 years because my max exposure is 86 years. So 33 years is a good deal for a max exposure of 86 years.
And you're saying
Um,
max exposure because of points for how bad of a life you led coming up to that, or you're saying just
So
that one bank robbery?
no, max exposure for all of the charges that I had racked up, and then additionally the bank robbery and the weapons charges and selling drugs to cops again,
Right.
priors, like
Yeah.
so like when
So,
all was
and
said and done,
this is max exposure with the Fed or max exposure with the state?
so the state picked it up.
Okay. So
Um,
the FBI backed off after the bomb was not a bomb.
yeah,
But then they handed you right back to the state to deal
yes.
with that. And you had basically a point system. You had max exposure on point system. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like if it was like a murder charge, your max exposure is life, right?
Yeah.
If I had one bank robbery, the max exposure was 7 years. But I had bank robbery, these charges, this charges,
Yeah.
priors, like all of these arrests, weapons charges, residential burglaries, like and a residential burglary is a strikeable offense. Like 3 of the charges were strikeable, right? And
Oh,
they're
wow.
all different as well. So California 3 strikes law says you can have 5 strikes that are exactly the same and they won't strike you out. But if you get 3 separate strikes that are different, they will strike you out. All of
Wow.
them were different, right? And so they were talking about 33 years was the deal. But if you get convicted and you get these 3, your max exposure changes based on the conviction to 25 to life. So in my head, I'm like, I am super fucked, right? And so
Yeah.
immediately start writing them. Little did I know at the time, they weren't, in order to get accepted there, they have to come and do a jail interview in person, face to face, right? Well, the jails were closed to that kind of stuff, right? So now this
Oh,
is
yeah.
February. This is almost a year after COVID. I was the first person that they allowed to have this place come in and do an interview since they lifted the ban, right? So, dude, anyway, everything kind of really clicked in my favor, right? Like I ended up getting a different public defender. The public defender, the very first time I met her, I'll never forget her name. I've tried to reach out to her over and over and over. She will not return my calls. She will not like get in touch with me. I don't know why.
Hmm.
But all I want to tell her is thank you, right? But
Yeah.
first time I meet her, she goes, "Look, I have a good relationship with the DA on your case. Give me something reasonable that I can bring to them and I'll do my best to get it for you." Right. So I said, I want to go to this program. I don't like to say their name for certain
Hmm.
reasons. Right.
Okay.
Um, I want to I'll go to this program for 2 years. I'll take 2 strikes. You can hang a strike and 10 years over my head. And if I F it up, I'll take the next strike. And now my max exposure goes to the 3 strikes. Right. So I'll take the 10 off the top, but now they have the option to play with that, right? And so
Wow.
she takes it to them, she comes back and she's like, there's only one thing they want different and they'll sign today. Like, okay, what is it? They want you there for 3 years. So I'm like, I'll sign it right now, right? And so sign the deal, get accepted to this place, and everything just really, really snapped into place as far as the opportunity, right? Go to sentencing and the judge tells me, look, we're going to give you this opportunity to change your life, right? And we're going to give you the ability to do this. If you don't, I will lock you up for the rest of your life. I will lock you up for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I was like,
Wow.
and then he goes, and I've sent, he's like, I've been a judge for 30 plus years. I've sent many, 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 many people to this program. None of them have made it. So good luck. And I was like, okay, for sure. Like challenge accepted, right?
Wow.
So, fast forward, I go to this program, and it's a struggle, right? Like, it isn't conducive to, so the baby's born on July 4th, right? I get there June 2nd and they don't even tell me the baby's born, right? Like they
Yeah.
literally completely isolate you. And, anyway, I'll kind of fast forward through this part. Basically what happens is I have a lot of time to really do some soul searching and a lot of time to
Yeah.
really like look into myself and say like, am I really, really done? Or am I just wasting my time here? What is the direction that I'm going to go? Like, what are my options moving forward? Like really tried to get foundationally the thoughts in place so that I can make the right decisions moving forward. Fast forward 3 years, I complete the program and yeah, like my life looks drastically different than it did 5 years ago, it's coming up on 5 years that so it's funny. Our child will be born around the same time that she told me that she was pregnant with our first one. Right. And so it's like a full
Your
circle
second,
moment.
yeah, your second child, yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what you were telling me before the show. You didn't really talk about it during, but you're about to be a two-time father now. Coming
Yeah.
back in. So and just to clear things up, your wife is the same girlfriend who left you in that July 4th time to say I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The
you
the
know,
day after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
or Thanksgiving. Yes, thanks. I'm July 4th, but so Thanksgiving. So stuck it out with you. So this facility is like residential, like you're living there
Yeah.
essentially as if it was like a prison, but it's not a lockdown, and it's one of these things that's really supposed to. I mean, kind of a lockdown, or I know you don't want
Kind
to
of.
say who it is or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's fine, but just describers or some of the.
Yeah. So the modality is it's a therapeutic community, right?
Mhm.
This place has a really good reputation in California for taking people who are fighting life sentences or coming out of life sentences and reacclimating them, right? Getting them to like do the right thing for long enough. And really it's a work therapy program where they
Okay.
basically tell you like, we're not going to talk about God. We're not going to talk about the steps. We're not going to talk about therapy. We're not going to talk about none of that. You're going to work until you like to work. And then when you like to work, you're going to work some more. And then when you go out there, you'll like to work and you'll be able to do the things that you need to do in order to be a productive member of society. Right.
So interesting philosophy. So yeah, okay. Would you say that maybe they don't do the reliance on religious therapeutic or scientific therapeutic because it's just you guys are those type of people that may be beyond you at that
Yeah.
point. You've had probably opportunities to come to God or come to some sort of a therapy, and it's like work, work, work,
Yeah.
work. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think at the bottom line of the philosophy is in order for you to be in a place where you're in a safety net enough to have a spiritual experience or enough to work through trauma or enough to even accept help therapeutically or like in a clinical sense, you have to be stable, right?
Yeah.
We live in a day and age where the treatment models are based off of 28-day stays typically, and dude, that isn't even enough to scratch the surface even in a superficial way, right? Like, you really need a lot of time, a lot of stable time, a lot of like mental clarity, um, building the prefrontal cortex, quieting the amygdala, like real physiological, biological healing before the mental and the spiritual can come into play. Right? And we're
Okay.
talking about people that are severely criminally minded, antisocial, just not the kind of people that are going to go into a 12-step meeting and have a spiritual awakening and put down the drugs. It's just not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Wow.
So that's kind of at the bottom line of the philosophy.
Okay. And not necessarily to like move into that topic, but just kind of because it works for this question. Is that sort of what you employ now? Like you've learned from that and said, this is me, this is what's worked for me, and this is what I'm going to employ going forward in my in my facility or in your current line of work.
So, yes and no. One thing that
Okay.
it definitely taught me was that everybody's recovery looks different and
Okay.
everybody has different needs, right? Maybe somebody needs to address trauma. Maybe somebody doesn't need to address trauma. Maybe somebody's like spiritual foundation is suffering and that's the problem. Maybe somebody's got like mental issues, right? Maybe somebody needs medication and they're not on it. Maybe somebody needs to get completely off the medication because it's fucking them up, right? Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's recovery is different. And
Yeah, there's
so,
not one menu, not one recipe to helping anybody.
right.
Wow.
It's all very subjective and it's all very individual. And so, what I offer at Harmony Grove, it's called a multiple pathway approach, where we don't tell you what to do. We just tell you you have to do something.
Mhm.
It's been 100 years since AA was basically 100 years. We're coming up on 100 years since AA was implemented and created. And since then, we have 100 years of scientific advances, scientific studies, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars have been dumped into these data sets where like they're trying different things. We have social awareness, social acceptance. They don't think that people who are addicted have a moral bankruptcy anymore. Like they kind of attach it to an illness, right? And so all of this has kind of geared us for the day and age that we live in to be able to say, we can actually treat you individually and offer you many approaches to see which one works for you. Now, this isn't an industry accepted thing. It's not like a widespread thing. A lot of them are still married to a 12-step model or married to certain philosophies, right? I'm not marrying myself to any of them. What I'm saying is they all have success. They all have failures. Now, I think that the failure rate is tied to trying to force somebody down a path that they shouldn't be on. So if we offer them any given path and we help them find the one that's correct, they'll have a higher likelihood of success, right?
Yeah.
My recovery looks very different because of Taylor. When I met Taylor, I was going to meetings multiple meetings a day. There were times where I did 3 or 4 a day, right? And I would go into those meetings miserable, sober, but miserable. And I would come out even more miserable. And then I met Taylor and he was like, this needs to change or you're headed for a fucking car wreck. So he helped me snap a couple things into place for myself. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life and my recovery. And so my recovery is not a cookie cutter recovery. My recovery doesn't look like anybody else's. It is unique. And I think that that's how it's supposed to be. Right now, the industry has a staggering failure rate as far as relapse from recidivism. There are treatment centers that are paying their bills with relapses, and I don't think that's right. The
Right.
introduction of
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying because yeah, especially if it's state funded or whatever, it's the person just goes back out and comes right back in, and
yeah,
they kind of look at it and go, all right, cool, dude. All right, cool. Just like
mhm,
mental health, some of these county type mental health hospitals,
yeah,
and they find a person that has insurance, or they have some state insurance or something like that. It's like, all right, dude, come on in. Here's your 3
yeah.
days. Here's your food. Here's your thing. Just rack them up. They just not interested in caring about, as you said, finding the solution through other, what type of modalities they can use.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, they're just a throw them through the machine.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what I really kind of boil it down to is if you look at outcomes and you drive your decisions by outcomes, there will be better decisions made. Right now, we've got a situation where with the introduction of fentanyl to the drug supply, that shit's in everything. There are people dying today from smoking weed that's cross-contaminated with fentanyl.
Yeah.
It's more dangerous today than it's ever been. It'll be more dangerous tomorrow. It'll be more dangerous the next day after that. And it's not going to get better. It'll get worse before it gets better. It's the leading cause of death for people under 40. Um, I mean, I watch it all the time and there's like cops arresting people and overdosing because it's in the air, right?
So
It's
would
a
you, and I wanted to bring that up, but you were really on a roll when you mentioned smoking fent at one point when in the story. Like, what would you say from your experience? Because well, I mean, you obviously have a different type of tolerance level than somebody like me. Um, the smoking or the introduction to it versus that cop, because I see you see arguments in the comments, you see arguments on podcast channels and stuff where they're like, yo, that's just an anxiety attack, there's no way an exposure to fentanyl, this or that. What do you say with your experience in that
Yeah.
realm?
So when you talk about bioavailability of a drug, right?
Yeah.
And then the different absorption methods of a drug, fentanyl is absorbable through your skin. Fentanyl is
Hmm.
absorbable through your mucous membranes, right? And the bioavailability of it, it's highly, highly absorbable and metabolizable, right? So any introduction of the smallest amount will go into your bloodstream and it will do its job. Fentanyl is not like heroin, where heroin suppresses the respiratory system, it shuts down motor skills, right? And so this isn't just like my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she would OD all the time. But I understood the mechanics of the drug and the chemical, right? So I would just breathe for her for 5 minutes and she would wake up, right? Like
Oh,
I would
so
just
like
give
little
her
CPR
CPR.
for her.
Yeah. And as
Wow.
long as you keep blood and air pumping, like oxygen through her system, there's oxygen going to her brain and she'll be perfectly fine. That's
Wow.
not the case with
But
fentanyl,
that
right?
was with heroin because, as you said, it
Yes.
suppresses the respiratory system. So heroin overdose, respiratory, breathing, CPR can save a life that
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
So then with fentanyl, you were starting to say.
Yeah, fentanyl is not, it works on the same receptor as far as the pleasure response, right? Works on the same receptor, but it doesn't do the same thing biologically that opiates do, right?
Okay.
People say that it's a synthetic opiate because of what receptor it attaches to, but it's a completely different thing. Um, the consequences are different. The health ramifications are different. There is a thing that they're finding now. The way that fentanyl works with your nervous system. Have you ever seen like the people that are hunched over?
Yeah, yeah. The fentanyl folds.
Yeah. So that's actually there's a medical term for that, where like the chemical interactions in your body actually kind of dictates that you're going to do that, because you lose the ability to feel certain gravitational signals on your body. Right. And so people like,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
people do
Yeah.
like these contorted, like just
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, and then the health ramifications for that. Like, I just interviewed a lady a couple weeks ago, and she has spine issues because of the slump that heroin has, right? And it's like we'll start to see, as people recover from fentanyl addiction, the health ramifications and the bone damage and the tissue damage and like all of the
Oh
downstream
wow. Yeah.
effects of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. And then that could push them back into an opioid painkiller
it's
type situation
yeah,
because they're dealing with herniated
yeah.
discs perhaps because they were stretching certain things because I mean I know things that
Mhm.
I can't stretch that if you lose that that like as you were saying the gravity sort of understanding because of it. Wow. Okay. Yeah. These are things that I've never really heard or understood
Yeah,
about the difference between a fentanyl and a heroin or an opioid type situation. That's um, yeah, it's really interesting on those, and and because we're given freaking Narcan to sort of bring the person back, usually on a fentanyl thing. But so would you say that like the officer that comes into contact either through not wearing gloves or it becoming sort of airborne because of maybe a wrestling match or a fight or a movement that kind of puts particles in the air, it's hitting their mucous membrane in their nostrils. Um, they're then going to go into that, and then assuming that officers maybe don't have that tolerance level of like a current addict or something like that. They could go into those sort of probably panic
yeah,
states, but then also reactions to the drugs.
yeah. So there are so there's a lot of misconceptions around what fentanyl is, right? And then they've got these derivatives of fentanyl. There's like carfentanil, fentanyl, and then like a couple other ones that are on the market now. When it metabolizes, it's funny because I see this in the drug tests now, right? Like heroin saturation points versus fentanyl saturation points, and then also the half-life of the drug, right? And so when you look at like what is a psychoactive amount, or an amount that is psychoactive to have these pleasure responses, it is minuscule compared to heroin, right? And so
Right.
one of the misconceptions that you hear a lot is that it's like 10,000 times more powerful. Maybe so. Like maybe so. Not in the high though, right? Chemically, what it does to the biological machine is probably that much more powerful. But the high is nowhere near the same, right? So like you can do a shot of heroin and be high for 8 hours. You can do um you can smoke some fentanyl and you are no longer high. Like once your tolerance goes up, you're no longer high 15 minutes later. So you are consistently, constantly pumping your system full of this stuff. The half-life is super long. It's super long acting. And so when people see that those videos of like cops that overdose just from it being in the air, they're like, no way. I was smoking 6 grams of fentanyl a day. There's no way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But you've got to look at the long-term effects of the chemical in the biological machine. and the short-term effects and what it actually does. Because people just assume that it's the same as heroin. It is not the same as heroin. It doesn't even do the same thing in the body.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that one of the most shocking ones that I saw was that guy. It was a sheriff deputy in Vista, California, and he like opened a bag. His partner left. He came back, and the guy was frozen, like just frozen. And he like lifted up his glasses, or he said something to him, and he fell back and full overdose. They didn't even find the bag in the car. They were in the back. They didn't even find it like anywhere close to them. It was like in the front of the car, and it was like street value, maybe $5 worth, right? But it
Yeah.
was like the drug settled or like whatever. They were hotboxing the car with it or something, and it was literally like probably the secondhand burn off that he absorbed just a little bit of that stuff in. And it's a very dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing for people in uniform. It's a dangerous thing for people on the streets. The saddest part to me is, and this gets into like conspiratorial waters where it's like,
I'm down with it.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, why is this actually happening, right? Like,
Yeah.
and why is it in everything? And why is it allowed to do what it's? First of all, the cartels are killing their clientele, right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. You see it all the time where when I was going down there were people getting killed for selling fentanyl. There were people getting killed for mixing it with their drugs, right? It's like, where's this really coming from? Who really wants this on the streets? It's like,
Right.
why did it hit the
Yeah. Yeah.
scene at the same
You
time
hear
as
those.
COVID?
Yeah, you hear those stories, and even stuff like watching Ozark and stuff like that. And I think they talked about it in Ozark, like,
Yeah.
the mixing the fentanyl into the game. They're like, oh hell no, like do not mess with our purity, with our, so is
Mhm.
it, the street level that's bringing that in, or but what's the if the cartels aren't interested in that or messing with that, where in the chain of custody is this getting brought in, and what's the motivation behind it
Yeah.
is a good question to ask. What we're trying to do, is it a terroristic thing? Because of course, you're going to listen to the news, and they're China's bringing it in, China's doing this. Is it a slow burn type, you know,
Long
problem.
gameplay where
Yeah,
they're gonna
long game.
kill, like, yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
so what are they? They said America loves their drugs, and
yeah.
so what we're going to do is we're going to poison those drugs. you, you know,
It, it's
you
interesting
know
you
better
bring
than
up.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring up the terroristic factor of it, right? When I started getting into heroin, it was Taliban heroin, right?
Right. Oh
And
yeah. I mean,
that,
that's one of the reasons that's talked about by special forces guy why we were over there. That's
yeah,
that's people can, there's full podcasts that talk about, from special ops guys to even conventional forces that were in Afghanistan, what they felt that their main purpose was, and it wasn't necessarily to put a stop to the Taliban. It was to guard poppy fields, to take over poppy fields,
yeah,
to get into that game. So it's interesting.
yeah. So when and that was kind of a talking point. I started using heroin 3 or 4 years after 9/11. Wait.
Okay.
4 years after 9/11 was the first time that I did it. That was a talking point at the time where they're like, if you do heroin, you're supporting terrorists, right?
Yeah.
And to all of us, it was like terrorists aren't bringing that shit across the sea, across the ocean. Like they're selling it to somebody that's bringing it over here. Yeah, but then you look at like the downstream chain of custody, and it's like these are farmers. Like I'm sure there is Taliban heroin, but like the majority of that is like it's a cash crop over there, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's an interesting, like my perspective, because I'm the user side of it, right? And
Mhm.
now I'm like on the complete opposite side of that spectrum. But from the user's perspective, it's like, dude, I'm not moving the needle so much as to like for people to really think that heroin money is really going to fund all of this stuff. It's like, dude, there's way more money in terrorism than just heroin.
Yeah. It's, I mean, well, and in 2005, that was, you could stamp that on anything and,
Yeah.
move the needle mentally with people in America, terrorism,
Mhm.
terrorism, terrorism, because that was the drum that was being banged to continue a war and that lasted for 20 years. All that. Yeah. That, I mean, that's a lot. That's a whole nother conversation. If you could, go back to, I'm not going to say Utah, but if you go back to, you, as a kid and sort of explain things, or, you do one of these Back to the Future, you show up in a spacesuit and you tell yourself, what do you think you tell yourself,
I wouldn't
about,
tell myself anything.
no.
I wouldn't change a single thing. There there are maybe one or two things that I could have done without, right? Just because it didn't go anywhere and it was pointless
Hmm.
suffering. Every bit of my suffering though has had a point, and I was forged in the flames of my own suffering, right?
Hmm.
And I wouldn't change a thing because I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today.
Hmm.
And additionally, if I would have done what I was supposed to do and like gone to law school and like been a part of the family firm and like done all that, I would be 36 years old today, heading towards a severe midlife crisis. Um, it was something that I was going to have to do at some point in my life. I'm thoroughly convinced of it. And I think that it helped me fulfill my destiny, to really help people. Because I'm not the average person that comes out of that. I'm not the average person that comes out of that and has success, right? I should be dead. I should be in
Yeah.
prison for the rest of my life. I'm not
Right.
either of those things. And I was handed an opportunity to really, really move the needle when it comes to like the overdose rates, the recidivism, like a lot of things that are going on that are industry norms today. I found myself in a situation that I'm working with this doctor who's developing a model and a theory around relapse prediction instead of relapse prevention. And of the few hundred that he's treated, 33% of the hundreds have presented in a specific way. He's been able to intervene and keep them clean for that year that they look for, right? And so
Yeah.
our assumption is right now in the treatment industry, to get a 5x valuation on a treatment company, you need a 5% success rate. In
That's,
order to,
yeah.
it's ridiculous. It's a
That
failing
doesn't
business.
sound like much. Yeah.
It's a failing 5 out of 100. If you can keep 5 out of 100 clean for a year, you get a 5x valuation, which is not bad. To get a
Wow.
10x valuation, you need 13%. And so
Still
what
low.
terrible,
Because we're
terrible.
not really truly helping people or getting to the root of the problem.
So what has been signaled by a lot of these industry norms is that 87 out of 100 of your clients can die and you'll still get a good valuation. You'll get the best
Yeah.
valuation you can get.
Yeah.
And granted, like I don't know what the actual divide is as far as alcoholics and addicts, and I don't know what the divide is after that statistically, that like who is actually a fentanyl addict, who has exposure to fentanyl, like, but if there were all 100 of them fentanyl addicts, 87 of them can die and it'd be okay,
Yeah.
which is fucked up to me. So um the working assumption is right now we're trademarking a bunch of stuff. We're working on a patent. We're working on copyright stuff. We're developing the LLCs around this stuff. The working theory is 5 years from now, we should have a 35% plus success rate. That is
Okay.
completely unheard of, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all we're doing is so when people enter recovery, there's two parts of the human that is focused on to try to heal all four parts, right? And I introduced this to Taylor about my theory about a man being four parts. And so we are mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical, right? And
Hmm.
the goal is to be balanced. When one of them is suffering, so if it's like this, if it's mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, or if it's mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, it's got gravity and it will pull the rest of you into it, right? And so
Yeah.
um what we're doing is adding a physiological answer to what relapse is, right? And if we can prove the biological component to the relapse, which is really still centered in the brain, not in the mind, right? Everybody's taught that addiction is centered in the mind. We agree with that, but we also think that there's a biological component that's centered in the brain, like that, the organ. And
Mhm.
so, based on the success that we've had and based on the data that we've collected, we should be able to go from industry standard is like 10% to 35+% pretty
Wow.
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, yeah, and really, um, making a change out of it. And then it, like, as you said, AA being 100 years old, you're working on a new study and even a new paradigm that,
Mhm.
that could change because, Alcoholics Anonymous helping people, yeah, probably has, but is probably in that low 5 to 10%
Yeah,
of rates.
I've tried to pull as much like accurate statistics as I can see. AA doesn't participate in outside controversies, and so
Hmm.
they would never hand over. They also don't track like relapse rates, success rates, failure rates, right? But I'll say this: um, in recorded history, we know the history of the program pretty well. They had almost 100% success rate. This was 100 years ago, right?
Okay.
People haven't gotten like dumber or just treatment resistant, right? I think this is what happened. The efficacy of the program dropped when outside entities became involved in it. And so you've got court systems and probation officers and parole officers and CPS and all of these outside influences sending people into this program that was supposed to be a program of attraction instead of promotion, right? And so
So almost like a franchise model versus, like the franchisee maybe doesn't have the motivation, so
yeah,
that person who's being forced to go versus just, hey, I'm an alcoholic, and you said you realized through family or friends or whatever, I need to do something to fix it, and you go to a meeting and you start the meeting 100 years ago was working better than now, just, hey, to get out of jail or to get out of this
mhm,
penalty, you have to attend it. To get your driver's license back, you have to
mhm,
go to it when, you know,
yeah.
the person hasn't fully made that decision.
Exactly. So I always tell people like I'm not a 12 stepper. I work Taylor's program.
Mhm.
But I believe in the program, but I also know that if Bill and Bob, the founders of the program, just magically appeared today and they went into a random room, they wouldn't recognize it for what they left behind, right?
Mhm.
It just has it has structurally changed in such a way, and then like you have 100 years of interpretation, right? Whereas back then, so couple things. Back then, that was the only answer. It was either that or go to jail, go to insane asylums, or die, right? And
Yeah.
so they developed this answer, and now in droves, people are coming to solve their alcoholic problem, where they've literally been banging their head against the wall for years trying to figure out what to do. There was no answer. Now it's kind of muddied the water where we have like all of these different answers and all of these different pathways to go into the program versus no, you have to fuck your life over completely to be in that station of surrender to even go in there to seek the help that you need because you have all of this data around your life that says I cannot fucking do this, right?
Yeah.
Most people are caught really young now. They're forced to go in there. They're not actually bought into the program. They don't want to be there. They fully have plans to not stay sober. Like, so that really muddies the water as far as the success levels. And I've tried
Mm.
hard to find statistics on success rates or failure rates. And sadly, like the best information that I can find says that for people who try to get sober, no matter which way it is, 99% of them continue to use after they
Mm.
try to get sober. So another one that's kind of more narrowly defined is 1 out of 10 people will stay clean for a year. Of that 10%, 1 out of 10 will stay clean for 5 to 10 years, but you got to go to treatment 7 times before you can stay clean for 1 year. So, like statistically, there it's like almost 100% failure rate, and it's like, and a lot goes into those rates, right? But then another thing, a major deficiency that I see in the system as it is today is that I don't think we set up clients for success, right? One of the first things that they hear on their way out is, hey, if anything happens, make sure you come back, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, are you saying that because you understand that you've set them up for failure? Or is it truly because you care and you want them to like be safe? The reality is, we have all these signals that are coming. It's a top-down model. It's a top-down culture, right? And so owners, investors, insurance agencies, the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, we're getting all these signals downstream that say this isn't going to work anyway. So we just try to plant the seed, or we just try to, there's all of these like industry lingo where it's like, oh, you plant the seed, you set them up with the vision, you do, and it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Because I'll tell you what, like, there are certain things that you can bill for in treatment. One of them is relapse prevention. Another one is coping skills. Like there's these things, there's these boxes that you can check off, right?
Yeah.
When I'm in relapse mode, I'm not thinking about relapse prevention. I'm not thinking about coping skills. When using is a viable option, that shit is so far from my mind. I could be in treatment for 5 years, and if I'm in relapse mode, none of that shit matters, right? And so
What's relapse mode feel like, or what's it, is it just, like what are you going through when you're in like a relapse mode?
So it's interesting, right? My entire lens that I look at it through has changed because of Dr. Shaw, the doctor that I'm working with this.
Okay.
Before, everybody's like, oh yeah, you quit going to meetings, or you quit praying, or you didn't keep up your spiritual fitness. What we're saying now is that there's a biological component to this relapse, and what it is there is an escalation in the hyperactivity of the amygdala based on the trauma that's been reactivated. So a very easy demographic of people to point to is first responders and vets. They have a lot of PTSD. They have a lot of trauma based on their work. They also, cops are people too, right? So it's like they're still raised in homes with parents that have problems. They're people too, right? So it's like compounding trauma, additionally to the job trauma, additionally to, unfortunately, a lot of them have unstable homes because of their job. And like, there's a lot of things that are going on in this human that happens to be a cop. And so,
Yeah.
when you look at the biological machine of the human, and you say like they have all of these layers of trauma, complex trauma, simple traumas, sexual trauma, physical trauma, abuse trauma, emotional trauma, spiritual, whatever, all of these layers of trauma, every single one of them represents a point that they can be reactivated, right? And so they're out there, they get a domestic violence call, and their mom used to get beat as a kid, right? They get reactivated, and subconsciously, they don't know that their amygdala is being overstimulated, right? That sends signals that starts a chain reaction that 5 days later, they end up spiraling. They're out of control. They're manic. They don't know what's going on. They're driving faster. They're taking riskier chances. They're beating up people in cuffs. They're doing this stuff, right, that they typically wouldn't do when they are not in a heightened state of arousal, right?
Mm,
So I'm sure you may have seen this in your 20 years where
yeah.
it's like, dude, I know you. Why did you do that? Right? Like it's kind of mirrors that when you're the addict, right? Like you might baseline be an addict, but then when you're reactivated, you get in this elevated state. There are different steps that we have tracked and we've put a label on that's like you go from A to B to C to D to F. Once you're past D and you're in like E, F, you're fucked. Like you are going to use. But if we can interrupt that cycle in A, B, or C, possibly D, we have like this whole process the interrupt process where we're patenting it and getting copyrights around it. And so what it typically looks like in the escalation is the hyperactivity starts. So it's a retriggering of the trauma. The hyperactivity starts. You become manic, and it's positive manic, right? Where you're goal directed. You start getting more stuff done. You're more flirty. You're happier. It feels good, right? And so
Yeah.
and then typically because of that process of starting a bunch of projects or like having, you want to travel more, you make a bunch of plans, and it's like it seems really positive, but very quickly it turns into confusion, lack of drive. You still are manic, but you aren't able to accomplish much. And then it starts like the confusion, and then the confusion leads into paranoia, where it's like, oh, people know that like I'm fucking up, or it's like just
Oh, yeah.
unrealistic expectations, right? And it's like you start to see things that aren't there. Maybe not visually, maybe not auditorily, but it's like you start to inherit things that are not there socially. Like you think people are looking at you, or maybe if it's a cop,
Talking
it's
about
like,
you, or yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like none of it's real. It's in your head. And that gets to a point where it's unrelenting fear and terror, to the point where you need something now to relieve you of the situation that you're in. When you're an
Mhm.
addict, you very easily reach for the solution, right? Which a lot of people's solution is the drugs. And so
Yeah. Okay.
most, and most people in this field, they're not looking at what happened before the relapse. They're looking at the relapse. They're focusing on the relapse as the point of reference for what needs to happen. We're looking at what happened before the relapse. Like, what was it that led to the reactivation? If we can get it to that level, like, how do we isolate you from whatever it is that you were exposing yourself to? We're really like relapse prevention in the real
Yeah.
sense of the term, right? Versus relapse prevention today, it's like they're teaching you coping skills, or they're teaching you like stay away from people, places, and things. You got to do this, you got to do that. It's like, no, 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 no. None of that matters when you're reactivated. So let's talk about what happens before that. Like, let's really narrow down, what are the trauma spots? What are your friction points? What are the things that you need to avoid getting into that escalation?
Yeah.
So we're really looking at like, when I got into this industry, I told people, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I just want to move the needle a little bit and I'll be happy. Right. And then Dr. Shaw and I got together, and it was like, okay, this is definitely how we can do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's super cool. So that's really like what you're doing, with your current facility, and what you guys, through Harmony Grove Behavioral Health. That's like what you're working with there. And then what are you doing with your podcast as well?
Yeah. So the podcast was kind of like a secondary thing, where I was like, so when Twitter first came out, this was like fucking 2004, something like that, like a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Podcasts became a thing. It was like Adam Curry. There was like 3 podcasts,
Yeah.
and I used to smoke weed with this guy, and we would sit and listen to Coast to Coast Radio, like Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, and like,
Okay.
and him and I would have like some cool conversations, right? And we did this for
Right.
years, and we were like, dude, we should start a podcast, right? And so ever since podcasting was like birthed, I was always like, I want to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and then business started, fast forward like decades down the line. It's like, I have this opportunity to talk about my philosophies and theories in a real way with other professionals and just other people, even auxiliary people. I just had a pharmacist on. I'm going to have a lawyer on next week. I have a doctor on twice a week.
Cool.
And so I get to talk about my truth around basically what we just talked about, right? I'm not beholden to the industry. I'm not taking investors. I don't need other people's money. So I don't have to marry myself to the industry standards and norms. And we can really make these changes with Harmony Grove and kind of like set that pace for like, this is what it should look like.
Yeah.
Um, and so the podcast kind of was birthed around like, I have something to say. I know that I'm going to make enemies. I need people to understand who I am publicly, so that
Yeah.
when this shit starts to hit the fan, like they know who I am. This isn't like
Yeah.
I'm just some industry disruptor that like thinks I'm going to make money some different way or whatever. It's like, no, there are deficiencies in a system and a industry that claims to be in the business of saving lives, and you're sacrificing 87 out of 100. How can
Hmm.
you rectify those two things at the same time? It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So then the podcast is really a way of advertising, or an attempt to get the word out, get people educated, like you said, on who you are, and then with Harmony Grove, and then how you're growing it, and get the philosophy out. And people are listening to podcasts a lot now, because like you said, I got something to say. You've got something to say, people, and it gives us the ability to be the media, to be
Yeah.
our media. Podcast is playable on demand, so somebody's able to listen to it whenever they want. They can go back into the archives and learn about something years later
Mhm.
if it were to come up. So yeah, it's you know, it's a good thing to have, and it's a good way. It's a great way to communicate. I mean, I'm sitting here banging my own drum or banging the drum of, you know, friends of mine. So that's perfect. So yeah, so there's your show, My Last Relapse podcast. That's your podcast.
Mhm.
And then I was also posted, drop that up, Harmony Grove, BH for behavioralhealth.com, and that'll go in the that's in the description too. um would you, I mean, I usually ask guests kind of towards I mean, we're probably getting towards the end. We're pulling a whole 2 hours right here on this one, so this was good. um Obviously, if you've got anything more you want to throw in, by all means. But I usually ask people, police officers, whoever, but do you find that you have anything that you have as a habit, not necessarily talking about drugs, but do you have a habit or something that you have to do every day, or that you do like through your work, like that you're like, all right, I got to do it,
Yeah.
like something that's like
Yeah.
a habit?
There are two key ingredients to Matthew Handy today.
Mhm.
Um, and off these two things, if you can marry that to a healthy recovery, you can do anything. Anybody who's ever had to quit doing drugs or anybody who's had to overcome some kind of addiction understands what that means. It is very difficult, right? But discipline and dedication, you can be disciplined until you are dedicated, or you can be dedicated until you are disciplined.
Mhm.
And for me, I work out, I work, I teach a certification course for sober coaches. I'm deep into peer support. I teach our education classes at Harmony Grove sometimes. There is no one thing that I do every day at the same time, but what I do is I make sure that I've got my calendars loaded, right? I make sure that I work out. It doesn't matter if it's in the evening or in the morning. I just
Yeah.
know, like, there are certain things that I have to do during the day. One of them is I have to, in one way or another, talk to somebody like we're talking today, right? Like
Okay.
right before I got on with you, I got a phone call from a mother who has a 31-year-old son that he has never done anything with his life. She's a nurse and she's had it up to here. And she's like, I am literally going to leave my son in Houston to figure it out by himself because I have dedicated 100% of my life to him. He hasn't gone to college. He's never had a job. He's never nothing. Right. And so I have these conversations as often as possible to try to do as much family work as I can with other families, because
Mhm.
ultimately, one of the biggest deficiencies that we have in the industry is we fail the full obligation to our clients because we don't talk to families anywhere near enough, right? You can't expect a healing person to go back into a sick situation and continue to heal. It doesn't make logical sense, and that is typically what happens. You can't charge for family therapy. You can't charge for family work, so it just gets neglected. So I try to be as available as possible to family members of people. So my only professional acclaim to this industry is I'm a certified peer and family specialist,
Mhm.
right? And typically peer work is for the peers, but I got into the family work because of my history with my family. And so I think that's massively important. I'm not like I wake up at 4, I work out at 4:15, I shower at
Yeah.
5:15. I'm not that
Yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah.
But
Strict. Yeah.
I know when I'm lacking in the day. I can feel it, right? Like I know when I missed the bar of success for my day. And
Okay.
and if I ever have those days where I miss that bar, like just that bare minimum of success that I have for myself, I reevaluate at night. I figure out what it was. I make sure I pinpoint it so that I don't repeat the same mistake. And so discipline and dedication, man, it'll get you through or around any obstacle that you will ever have in your life.
You bring up a point that I was thinking about as you were talking about it, and you said it. I never clarified or got to. You said you created social media late and stuff like that because you were hiding from your family. What's the 10 brothers and sisters situation, parents situation like, and then we can kind of wrap it up at that. Bring it around
Sure.
full circle from the beginning.
So, almost 2 decades of using and criming, it weighs a lot, right? That
Yeah,
isn't like it's not a light burden to unload. And I was the oldest, right? I was the
yeah,
example. I was supposed to be that guy, and I wasn't, right? And I failed in my obligations as a son. I failed in my obligations as a brother. I failed in my obligations as a citizen, right? And so
mhm,
I have to rebuild those broken relationships as slowly as they want. I have siblings that I have a great relationship with. I'm in business with one of them. We talk multiple times a day. We go out and eat. We have fun. We talk. We're in business, and then I have a really, really good relationship with my dad. My dad has always been my greatest advocate, which is interesting because he's not even my biological father.
mm,
Um, and which that is a
yeah,
whole rabbit hole. Like, my biological dad and my dad are best friends to this day. They see each other every day. They live right next to each other, right?
oh, yeah,
So my family situation today is not ideal, but it's also the consequences of my very long-term actions, and I accept the accountability for that, you know?
okay,
I do what I have to do to make it known that I have, not that I'm sorry, not that I apologize, but like I'm a different person, because sorry doesn't mean shit.
yeah,
I
yeah. I hate the
apologize
word.
doesn't mean shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I do what I have to do to show myself as well, right? Like I'm not the kid that was under the bridge 5 years ago. If you would have told me 5 years ago, if Justin met Matt or has Matt 5 years ago, and you said you're going to be on my podcast almost a year to date, I mean 5 years to date, and you're going to have a treatment center and kids, and you're going to be like
yeah,
involved with your family again, I would have asked you what you were smoking and where'd you get it, right?
yeah.
Because it wasn't reality. And it also is not what I deserve, right? What I deserve looks very different than what you're seeing. And so, yeah, it isn't the smoothest road. It's a rocky road and it's an uphill battle, but it's a battle that I'm willing to fight. And
Yeah.
this is just the wreckage of my past, and I have to clean it up every day.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, and I would assume that you'd say you're available to them. Anybody
Absolutely.
that's and they have the opportunity to see you for who you are now, and then they can make those choices as to if they want to re-meet you or get to know you as you are now, versus holding on to what you were and
Hmm.
in your history. So yeah. So I mean, quite a quite a redemption story. Holy crap, dude. Yeah, I mean, this has been great. It's one of the longest that I've done over this, and you tell it really well. You've probably told it a few times, but I applaud you for where you are now and how it seems that you have gotten to this point, and amazed that you've made it to this point. So like
Yeah, I
your
wake up.
body is an amazing machine,
It really is.
for what you've put it through. So
Yeah,
respect to
I
that.
I wake up every day and like I shouldn't be here, It's
Yeah,
like, and I really am grateful for like
yeah.
where I ended up, because I didn't think I would be here.
Yeah. Oh, very cool, man. All right, cool. Well, we could probably wrap it up. As I said to everybody, the website and the social media and stuff are all going to be linked in down in the bottom in the description. Harmony Grove Behavioral Health and My Last Relapse podcast. Thank you, Matthew Handy, for coming on and sharing your story, man. Like, what an amazing story. And I know we probably could have gone for way longer.
Yeah.
So we may have to talk some more. And if I make it out to Houston, come check you out. and
Dude,
say
I would
what's
love
up.
to have you on. I
So,
know Taylor's coming out at some point soon to come on, but dude, yeah, I would love to have you on.
cool, man. Yeah, I don't have much on that side of the story, but I'm sure we can talk about plenty
Hell
of
yeah.
stuff because you know I'm a student of society, a student of you know, just civilization as it is, and anthropology and people. I'm a sociologist, so
Okay.
you know, I studied it as a minor in college, and I went into a career that basically focused on society and how we all work together and how we can work together to function and get through this you know, 80 years of our existence on this planet, 80 to 90 and maybe more of what we
Yeah.
can exist on this planet. So all right, cool, bro. Well, I'll wrap it up here, and then I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, man. Thank you again.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.